Hello students, today we are going to discuss the 9th chapter of class 10th history. The name of the chapter is Independence and Partition of India. This is the last chapter related to the Indian freedom struggle. The next chapters are related to the history of the contemporary world. As per the revised syllabus, you have to study 3 important topics from this chapter. The important topics are: the first one, Mountbatten Plan; second, the acceptance of Mountbatten Plan; and the third one is the Indian Independence Act of 1947. The main provisions of the Mountbatten Plan and the clauses of Indian Independence Act, and why Mountbatten Plan was accepted by Congress. These were the 3 possible questions you can expect from this chapter. Before going to the details of these 3 major topics, there is an introduction for this chapter. The Second World War came to an end in the year 1945. The post-war period witnessed so many changes all over the world, political as well as economic, especially in the countries which took part in the Second World War. In India also, there were strikes, hartals and demonstrations demanding independence from the British. In England, the Labour Party soon in power, replacing the Conservative Party. The new Prime Minister of England was Clement Attlee. Clement Attlee and the Labour Party were in favor of giving freedom to the Indians. In order to facilitate the transfer of power, the British Prime Minister sent cabinet mission to India in 1946. The cabinet mission was consisting of 3 cabinet members. The 3 members of the mission were Sir Stafford Cripps, Pethick Lawrence and A.V. Alexander. They came to India, met the important Indian leaders representing various political parties of India, and after discussing with them, they prepared a plan. That plan was called Cabinet Mission Plan. But some of the provisions of the Cabinet Mission Plan was not acceptable for Indian National Congress and Muslim League. The Muslim League, even though it accepted the proposals of Cabinet Mission Plan, but they were not happy when their demand for the creation of a separate state for Muslims named Pakistan was rejected. Along with this, the clashes between Indian National Congress and Muslim League intensified. In order to solve this problem, the British government called back the Viceroy of India, Lord Wavell, and they appointed the new Viceroy of India, that was Lord Mountbatten. Lord Mountbatten came to India and made the arrangements for the transfer of power. The next topics, the provisions of Mountbatten Plan, the reasons for the acceptance of Mountbatten Plan, and the clauses of Indian Independence Act. They are explained in a PowerPoint presentation. So the remaining portion of this video will be shown through a PowerPoint presentation. The important points you have to note down.
The British Parliament appointed Lord Mountbatten as the Viceroy of India in 1947. The immediate task of Lord Mountbatten was to solve the deadlock between Indian National Congress and Muslim League. He realized that the Cabinet Mission Plan was unworkable and partition of India is inevitable. So he prepared a plan for the partition of India. That plan was called Mountbatten Plan. Following are the important provisions, the important clauses of Mountbatten Plan. The first one, partition. According to the Mountbatten Plan, the country would be divided into two dominions, that is, India and Pakistan. The second one, a relation between the two new dominions. What type of relations should be maintained between the two new dominions and with the British Commonwealth? The dominions can decide what type of relations they would have with the British Commonwealth and each other. The third clause of the Mountbatten Plan, the setting up of a boundary commission. A boundary commission will be created and it will settle the boundary of two dominions. Once the country is going to be divided, a boundary should be set up. For setting the boundary between these two new dominions, a boundary commission will be set up. The fourth provision of Mountbatten Plan, that is related to princely states. The treaty signed between princely states and the British government will come to an end with the independence of India. All the treaties signed between Indian princely states and the British government will lapse. The princely states were given another option. They were given the choice to be associated with either India or Pakistan, or they can remain as an independent state or province. The fifth one, Constituent Assembly. As per the provisions of the Cabinet Mission Plan, a Constituent Assembly was already set up. The existing Constituent Assembly would continue to work, but the constitution framed by it would not apply to Pakistan. One of the main duty assigned to the Constituent Assembly was the creation of the Constitution. They have already started the framing of the Constitution. That Constitution will be for India. For Pakistan, they have to prepare a new Constitution. The next provision, Transfer of power. The Mountbatten Plan ended with the declaration that the transfer of power would take place not in June 1948 but much earlier than that. So Mountbatten Plan promised that the transfer of power will not be in June 1948. It will be earlier, that means in 1947 itself the power will be transferred. The seventh provision of Mountbatten Plan. It is related to Northwest Frontier Province. In Northwest Frontier Province, a plebiscite was to be held to ascertain that the people wanted to join India or Pakistan. In the Northwest Frontier Province, a plebiscite means a referendum or a poll, a survey among the people will be conducted. From this, they were coming to know that the wishes of the people is to be with India or Pakistan. As per the wishes of the people, the province will be added either with India or with Pakistan. The eighth clause, it is related to Sindh. The Legislative Assembly of Sindh was to take its own decision at a special meeting to which of the dominion Sindh is going to be joined, either with India or with Pakistan. Its decision will be taken at the Legislative Assemblies meeting of Sindh. So these were the main provisions, main clauses of Mountbatten Plan. The Mountbatten Plan was accepted by Muslim League and Indian National Congress. Even though the Indian National Congress was against the practice of dividing the country, but there were some reasons for the acceptance of Mountbatten Plan. In the exercise, there is a question why Congress accepted the Mountbatten Plan. Following are the reasons for the acceptance of Mountbatten Plan. There are 5 important points. The first one, the large-scale communal riots engulfed the whole country, convinced all that the only solution for communal problem lay in the partition. Before the eve of independence, there were a number of communal riots all over the country. Lots of people from the Muslim community and Hindu community lost their life. So the Congress leaders felt that the only solution for the communal problem is the partition of India into 2 dominions. The second point, the Muslim League joined the interim government to obstruct and not to cooperate. As per the provisions of the Cabinet Mission Plan, an interim government was set up in 1946. The Muslim League participated in the formation of the interim government. But the intention of Muslim League was not to support Congress and Nehru, but to create problems. The past experience of working with the League convinced Congress leaders that it is not possible to work with the Muslim League smoothly. So they opted for the partition of the country. The third point, the only alternative to partition was a federation with a weak center. The Congress leaders felt that the smaller India with a strong central authority was better than a bigger state with a weak center. If India is not divided, it will be a big country, but there will have continuous problems. So they preferred a smaller India with a strong central government, and a peaceful atmosphere will be better than a bigger state with a weak center. The fourth point, any further continuation of British rule would mean a greater calamity for India. It is said that some of the English officials were inspiring the Indian leaders, Indian rulers of the princely states to remain independent. So the Congress leaders felt that the further continuation British rule would cause for greater calamity in India. The last point, the leaders felt that further delay in the transfer of power would find India in the midst of a civil war. The delay in the transfer of power will create many problems. There will be war between provinces against provinces. There will be wars between different communities. So Congress leaders felt that the further delay in the transfer of power will lead to a civil war in India. Because of these reasons, the Mountbatten Plan was accepted by the Congress leaders. The next topic is the Indian Independence Act of 1947. After the Mountbatten Plan was accepted by the Indian leaders, the British Prime Minister introduced the Indian Independence Bill in the House of Commons. The British Parliament has two houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. The bill was passed by both houses of the British Parliament on 1st July 1947. Once the bill was passed, it became an act. That act was called the Indian Independence Act of 1947. Following are the main provisions of the Indian Independence Act of 1947. The first one, two new dominions. You can see some similarities between the clauses of Indian Independence Act with Mountbatten Plan. The first provision, first clause of Indian Independence Act of 1947 was the creation of two new dominions. India would be partitioned into two independent dominions. They are India and Pakistan, and it would be created from August 15th, 1947. That was the first provision of the Indian Independence Act of 1947. The country will be divided into two dominions, India and Pakistan, from 15th August 1947. The second provision is the provision for partition. Both Bengal and Punjab will be divided if so decided by the people. As per the wishes of the people, the states like Bengal and Punjab will be divided. A plebiscite would be held in Northwest Frontier Province as well as in the Sylhet district of East Bengal to determine whether they would like to join India or Pakistan. In Northwest Frontier Province and Sylhet district of East Bengal, a plebiscite would be held, and as per this plebiscite, the people will decide they wanted to be a part of India or Pakistan. The third provision is for a Governor General for each dominions. As per the Indian Independence Act of 1947, there would be a Governor General. He would be appointed by the British King on the advice of the cabinet of the concerned dominions. The Governor General, the appointment of the Governor General will be by the British King, but it is as per the advice of the governments of the concerned dominions. The fourth clause, Constituent Assemblies to serve as Central Legislatures. The Constituent Assemblies of both the dominions were to act as Central Legislature and would have full powers to make the laws for their respective dominions. Election to the Constituent Assemblies were held in 1946. So, consisting of the members of this Constituent Assembly, two Constituent Assembly will be there. One is for India and one is for Pakistan. This Constituent Assembly will act as the central legislature of both dominions. The next is related to princely states. Princely states would become independent and all the powers exercised by the British authorities were to be terminated. The princely states were in good terms with the British government. There were so many treaties and agreements were between princely states and British government. All will elapse, all will come to an end. The next one, treaties and agreements. All the treaties and agreements made by the British government with the Indian state would lapse from 15th August 1947. The British government will not have any responsibility or authority over the Indian states after 15th August 1947. The next provision is related to the division of army and assets. Once the country will be divided into two dominions, the assets and liabilities of the country should be divided. So, provisions were made for the division of Indian army between two dominions and steps were to be taken to share the assets and liabilities between two dominions. As per the size and population of both the dominions, the army, assets and liabilities were divided. The last provision, end of jurisdiction of the British Parliament. Under this point, some sub-points are there. They are, the first one, the legislative authorities of the British Parliament would cease from 15th August 1947. All the legislative powers of the British Parliament over India will cease to operate from 15th August 1947. The second one, till the new constitution was framed, each of the dominions and all provinces were to be governed in accordance with the Act of 1935. The administration of both dominions and the provinces will be as per the provisions of the Act of 1935. The third point, the right of the king to veto law was given up. That means the British king's power over the two new dominions will be given up. Thank you.